The information found in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hi, and welcome to the Women in Depth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lourdes Viado. Join me as we explore the inner lives of women, their struggles, fears, hopes, and dreams. We'll go beneath the surface and take a deeper look at what is hidden, unknown, uncertain, and uncomfortable. Hi, and welcome back to the Women in Depth podcast. Today, I am very excited about our guest, Suzanne Benton, because she is an individual who has this magical ability to help kids relax and fall asleep. And I'm sharing this from personal experience because I discovered her work in my quest to find resources to help my own son to relax and to learn how to be with his big feelings. And my intention wasn't to look for a bedtime meditation. However, that's how I discovered Suzanne's work on Insight Timer. And although the meditations she's created are for bedtime, they work in so many other ways. And so I was so excited after discovering her and sharing her work with my son, who we had probably gone through, countless books. We tried different meditations. And as soon as he heard the opening words of her ocean bedtime meditation, she had him. And so I knew I wanted to learn more about her and invite her onto the podcast because I know that for many of us, helping our kids to relax, helping them to fall asleep, helping them to be with their big feelings is something that, we as parents struggle with, and we really want to help our little ones be able to develop these skills. These are lifelong skills that will take them far. And so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Suzanne. Suzanne is a mother, stepmother, and grandmother with a degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in Child and Family Studies. She launched into the world of infant-toddler daycare 20 years ago, and her high standards for working with and supporting children and families led her to open her own daycare called Magical Child Family Daycare. Suzanne's goal was to create an environment in which children felt welcomed, challenged, and supported in their unique growth, and parents felt valued as part of a community that supported them. In 2006, Suzanne studied to become a massage therapist. She developed a thriving practice, which has kept her busy for the past 12 years. She values supporting adults, much like she supported kids, to help their bodies and minds learn. 4 years ago, Suzanne combined her body work, mindfulness, and relaxation skills with her experiences with children and families, and began writing bedtime stories and recording bedtime meditations. She loves to share resources for parents and kids that make the sleep process easier at the end of the day. Hi, Suzanne, and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. It's so interesting hearing your voice because we hear it so much in the evening. So I can't even describe the feeling like hearing you when we first connected for the call.
I'm going to lull you into a relaxed state.
Yes, you are, which I appreciate. I can use that anytime. So thank you again for being here. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, you have really had a positive impact on my son and his ability to relax at bedtime, but also in other situations in different parts of the day. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think I was taking a note when you were talking about that, because I do think that bedtime is a little bit of it's a metaphor for, sort of thinking about what happens as the body relaxes. It's sort of an in-between time for families where they're going from active and awake to rested and ready for bed, calm. But that process, it works really well at bedtime. It's part of bedtime, but it doesn't have to be only at bedtime. It's a process that the body appreciates whenever it gets to do it. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that my bedtime magic works at bedtime, but also can expand to other times, and also to parents as well as children. I think just hearing you say that your mind and body are slightly relaxed just from the sort of cadence of my voice. I love it. I love that the idea that while you're relaxing with your children, you can also benefit, because I think adults need that as much. I certainly do, as much as kids.
And I think too, just having a relaxed parent in general I know that I'm better at parenting overall when I'm relaxed. And so just being able to have the training by listening to your meditations and practice of paying attention to your body and noticing sensations, and just, again, that inner awareness that, it's so hard to access in our very busy and distracting world.
Yeah, it's very valuable. And I think it's a skill to have along with, I think maybe this is jumping ahead to one of your questions, but it's not about stopping all of the learning and all of the fast-paced information gain, because that's really what kids do in their first years of life. It's intensely, accelerated learning, and it's good and it's fun and it's worthwhile to do all that, but to have a balance where you also have the skills to relax and slow down and tune inward, so that you're not always tuning out to the outside world. Well,
one of the things that I love about his bedtime now is, he just jumps right into the bed and he's like, okay, I'm ready to listen to my meditation. So he's excited about it, or he'll say, I can't wait. And, that's just it just fills me with joy to see
it's
him.
Precious. Yeah. And for a parent, I was thinking sort of about why I do what I do. It's because there is so much intense joy. I've found so much intense joy in those moments, and that they sometimes feed you because parenting is really hard. It's hard on all the levels. And so to be able to continue sort of the struggle or continue the difficult parts of parenting, to have yourself fed by the absolute beauty, joy, wonder, and magic of being with a little person who's your own, or, in whatever way. Yeah, it does. It lifts and fills your heart, and that's worthwhile.
I love the name that you had for your daycare, by the way, Magical Child.
It's from a book. I should give credit. It's the title of a book, and the psychologist, I think, that wrote The Magical Child is escaping me.
So it was a title of a book.
Yeah. The Magical Child, it was called, yeah.
And I also loved how you included the family with that. And even when you described what you wanted for this daycare, was the family as a community that was involved and also valued and supported in the process.
Probably the one thing that I took most, that was embedded in me the most from my college education in child and family studies, was the model of the concentric circles of the child and child development in the center, and then surrounding that is the parent or parents or caregiver, and then surrounding that circle is the community at large, and sort of learning about the ways to support families and children in that sort of concentric circle.
And I think that's also, that model is definitely infused in these bedtime meditations that you've created. Yeah, it's like a magical bedtime.
Yeah.
So, Suzanne, I'd like to start with asking, what drew you to begin creating the bedtime meditations or the bedtime stories for children?
Probably some of the best years of my life was the daycare center that I ran, and being able to be lead teacher with some really wonderful other lead teachers that I found, and just being in the moment. And I think people have said that it's a skill that I have to kind of weave magic into information, or weave sort of beauty or wonder. One of the mottos of our daycare was wait, watch, and wonder. So I would spend a lot of time with little people just supposing, I wonder what that the reason for that is, or I wonder what would happen if this happened. So much of my day was filled with creating sort of stories and full of wonder and magic. And I think, again, it's sort of a balance of, when you're growing, you have to learn certain things and you have to learn how to exist in the world. And all of that is good and true. But you also like the power of children's imaginations and the power of my imagination when I was with them. It was just a very delicious state to be in. And I missed it when I stopped having the daycare and seeing those families daily. And I think while I was massage therapist and learning and incorporating all of the steps of relaxation and what I saw with my clients helped me put words to that sort of softening. But I think I did the thinking and the creating of the magical meditations because I was missing it. So once I turned to massage therapy, I kept wanting to tell the stories and wonder and be amazed and use my imagination. And so I started during that time recording.
Yeah, and I noticed that you use the word imagine frequently, in your stories.
Uh-huh.
And also I noticed an emphasis on color. Can you talk a little bit about those, the use of the word imagine and also the emphasis on color and how you choose the colors too?
I'll start with imagine and then bring me back if I go too far. As a parent, I had to restructure the methods that I was talking to myself and imagining myself as a parent. They were insufficient, they were negative, and they were sort of self-defeating. So I needed a new method when I became a parent myself to talk to myself. So switching to positivity. I'm Capricorn. And I know it's not overarching, and certainly there's a lot of nuance, and I don't actually study horoscope, but I remember hearing the message that I was practical and I was negative and I was very down to earth, and that's what defined me. And I absolutely shifted it. And part of it was going to massage school and learning some more about energy and energy flow and positive energy and creation of ideas and creation of new processes and creation of balanced states. And so I use imagination because I think that our brains are so powerful, and that using a positive feeling or creating a positive feeling, they say your brain can't tell the difference between a real thought and a thought, or a real observation and a thought, as far as what chemicals are produced in the body. And so if you are using your brain to create positive states and positive feelings, then that supports your physical body and it supports your mental and emotional states as well. And so a lot of it is playing with positivity and using your imagination in good ways instead of, if you use your imagination in negative ways, it's called worry and it's called stress. Because those aren't real. Not often do the things that you worry about come true actually in your life. But if you can switch it and spend some time doing the positive thinking, you are creating body states and mental states and emotional states that are very healthy for you and help you grow and help you create. And sort of, I guess I should say for me, when I would get lost in worry or stress or anxiety, I would feel frozen and blocked and not able to function or make a decision. And when I use positive imagination and I put myself in what if this were true? What if it will work out beautifully? What if I have power? What if my love means something in the world? Then it opens me up to be able to act, I guess, in ways that come from that place of love and positivity.
That's amazing. It's so beautiful. And what you're describing, actually, it is aligned with what we now know about the brain.
Yes.
As when you were sharing this, I work with a lot of clients who have experienced childhood trauma and then trauma also as adults, and trauma being anything where you feel like your life is in danger, you will be harmed or someone else will be harmed, or things that we don't always think of as trauma, like abandonment, growing up in a home where perhaps there's an active addiction, those types of situations. But trauma changes the brain. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I learned as I was studying about trauma in the brain is, the front of our brain has our cortex, our prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking center. And I thought it was interesting that the same part of the brain where we do our cause and effect, logical reasoning, deductive thinking, where we analyze, that right there is also the part of the brain that has creativity and imagination. And I was wondering, like, that's so interesting that you have this cause and effect logical part of the brain. And right by there in that same area is also the part of the brain that we find creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that when you think of anxiety and trauma, it becomes, what if nobody likes me? What if everything goes wrong? What if my greatest fears will come true? And so the imagination becomes about imagining worst case scenarios, imagining that one will be rejected, not trusting oneself. And then your imagination just goes with that, and just,
yes.
yeah. And then the interesting part, when you said you would become like locked and frozen when you would begin to have these thoughts. So we have the other part of our brain, the fear center, which is the amygdala. And when the amygdala feels or senses that there's danger, there's a threat, it does, one of three things. It's either going to fight, flee, or freeze. So we'll either start getting really irritable, getting into disagreements, maybe grumpy, or actually getting into a conflict. We will leave in some way, whether we really leave or we leave even if we're there, or we shut down. And so that really fit what you described. I thought that was really powerful.
And I think for kids too, we don't necessarily know what they will take as a fear situation or a perceived trauma, and that it's subjective and different for everyone. So as a parent, we can support and supply soothing and skills that can help with the support of not negating trauma. What's the word? Managing or...
managing.
I guess just the idea that as parents, we don't always know what will cause a reaction in our kids or cause fear or cause an upset. And so if we are able to help their brains process and release and witness for them their lives and their experiences, then we are supporting their brain growth and we are mitigating the effect of trauma.
Yes, absolutely. And what I love about your work is, again, it's teaching children to relax using body-based techniques. And that is research-based. In work with trauma clients, it's about teaching them how to breathe, diaphragmatic breathing, how to use meditation, mindfulness, body awareness to calm their body down. And that's exactly what you're doing in your meditations. And I just love that you do it in such a playful, wondrous,
magical.
Creative way. It's magical.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what people say. Even as a massage therapist, people, after getting to know me, I say, "What can I help you with?" And they say, "Just do your magic. Just do your magic." And I don't even know that I know always what it is,
right.
but I think part of it is creating a space for people to process and unwind their bodies and their minds. And if their minds are being shown love and thoughtful images, that's one way for the body to unwind and the mind to unwind. When I was learning massage therapy, I went in because I have my own chronic pain issues. I had hip pain growing up as a teenager, and I started in part because I wanted to know what was going on with my body. I wanted to know muscles, bones, and nerves and understand them. And I went into my massage training, and the very first thing we studied was Reiki and energy and the chakra system and how energy flows through the body and the colors associated with it. And I know we'll get back to colors. And I remember being very frustrated because my parents were hippies. They were new age. They were very touchy-feely sort of with, well, that's a judgment, sorry. they were just very, I had a hard time as a teenager with that approach. And so my mom told me that I was on incense and feather patrol often. But when I learned, when I sort of immersed myself in that energy work, I felt like I was home. I felt like I could connect better with my own body and other people's bodies. And I think the idea that both are in the frontal cortex, the very concrete cause and effect and sort of material body ideas, and the creativity and imagination and sort of energy work, I felt that balance of the more I learned about muscles, bones, and nerves, the more I also saw how people's energy is connected and the levels that they can connect through love and how powerful that is for people was eye-opening and amazing.
So now, Suzanne, can you share about the colors?
Yes, I think that color is one of the very first language references that kids have. It creates a lot of communication between parents and kids in learning colors and seeing color and being in color in the natural world. And that it's a very soothing sort of primal reaction, which I would qualify for children who see and use color. So when you're talking about color and when you're sort of bringing up color into your mind, it's often associated with celebration and connection with a caregiver. And so it's very powerful for kids, and it's very visual, and often feelings aren't that easy to grasp and understand for young kids or older kids. But if you can bring it into a concrete idea like a color, then it's easier to envision and it's easier to sort of process and move and release. And so I love to use color in that way. When I did massage for one, I think he was maybe an 8-year-old boy, I did some massage where he was having some back pain, and I was moving my hands on his back, and we started talking about color. And I said, do you have a level of color, or what's your favorite color? And he said blue. And I said, okay, well, when I press here, is it like a light blue? Is it a dark blue? What's the feeling? Is there any black mixed in with the blue? And so we had a conversation about his pain level and about the changing and shifting and release of those physical knots in his body by using his ability to say to me, that's getting to a lighter blue. The lighter blue feels better than the darker blue. And
that's amazing.
So I really value color as a way to communicate and as a way to share ideas and be able to feel movement of emotion and energy in your body.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And I've never even really thought of color in that way. And it's so obvious when you bring it up. But yeah, and to help children, give them a tool, a language for describing where they are on any type of, spectrum.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of models for color. There are chakras, and the chakra system has association with each color. And if you believe about vibrational energy, each color emits a different vibration and frequency. So it's fun. Like if you want to dive into color, you can really sort of, as an adult, I think, read a lot into what your kids are experiencing. There's color psychology and being able to associate different feelings with different colors. Although I don't prescribe feeling and color for anyone else, there's definitely models and they're a good place to start. But I think it's much more valuable if you take information from your kiddo about what their favorite colors are and what the different shades and hues mean for them. But it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, yeah. So, Suzanne, what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to bring my son into the interview. And when I told him I was going to interview, he was so excited. Oh, he just was jumping up and down on his bed. And so, I told him I was pretty excited too. So,
yeah, I was excited too.
And so he wanted to ask you a question. And then I think he also wanted to tell you about some of his reaction to the meditation you created for him. And I just want to share with our listeners, when I first discovered Suzanne's work, of course, I delved right into the internet to find out everything I could about her. And I was so excited to discover that she actually creates custom meditations for children at bedtime. And so I asked her to create one for my son, and it just blew me away. It was absolutely amazing, powerful, and my son loves it. We've listened to it every night. And as I mentioned to you, Suzanne, when I emailed you, we're going to be ordering more.
I think it's good more to have an arsenal.
Have a few, yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on so that he can ask his questions. Okay. Let me turn this up a little bit. Okay. And Mommy is going to hold this up so I can hear too. Okay. Can you say hi to Miss Suzanne?
Hi.
Good morning. I'm excited to hear your voice. Meet you with my ears.
What's it like to hear her voice?
It's kind of cool.
Is it kind of cool? It's kind of different from when you hear it at night?
Yeah.
Or is it sort of the same?
No, it's kind of different.
Kind of different.
Okay. So why don't you start by telling her what you liked about the meditation that she made for you?
I liked the characters in the story, and I liked that it was at the ocean.
Yeah. It sounded to me like you liked a lot of things about the ocean. So I wanted the story to be about the ocean.
And then did you want to tell her anything about the golden bubble?
Oh, I liked the part in the story about the golden bubble.
You do? You think about it sometimes and making a bubble around your body?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I like that feeling a lot. Sometimes I think it's a golden bubble for me, and sometimes I change the color. And so if you ever want to change the color, you get to choose what color is around you. But the gold is really nice.
Oh.
So you wanted to ask Miss Suzanne a question, remember? About the meditations?
Oh, yeah. How do you come up with the meditations?
How do I come up with a story? Well, your mom tells me, I ask her a few questions about the things that you like and the things that maybe you find are a little bit of a struggle, and things that you're working on, but also what kind of person your mom says maybe you are, and according to her. And so I think about it. And so I probably thought about you for about 3 days. And then I knew it would be an ocean story, but I wasn't quite sure who the characters would be. But I started to tell a story. I sat down and wrote for a little while, and then I stopped and I thought, well, what would be the best way to make you feel the most happy and the most amazed and the most safe and connected to the world around you? And so then I just told the story. And I think I like stories, like I love the ocean and I love ocean animals and creatures. And so I have great fun making up a story that I would listen to too. So sometimes I might listen to the story that I wrote for you at night because I like to hear bedtime stories too.
So can you tell her thank you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's lovely to meet you.
Say nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So thanks so much for taking the time to talk to my son for a few minutes there, Suzanne. And he shared about the golden bubble, which I felt was a really helpful tool for him. And you use similar images in your meditations. And so I wanted to ask, how do the elements of the meditations, how do they become tools for the kiddos to use?
That's a wonderful question. I think in the end, for me, the tools that effectively or this bring relaxation to adults and children are the feeling of being safe and the feeling of being connected and the feeling of being loved. So using imagery that creates that sense of safety in the body and the mind, and in the body often it's feeling warm and sort of enclosed and not being able to turn inward by being safe in a bubble, for instance, and feeling connected. And so in the imagery I think I use in a lot of the meditations is being a part of the bigger world, or being a part of being friends with different sea creatures, for instance, and noticing the world around you as a way to be part of it and send love back and then receive love from the world around you in different parts. So creating ideas that sort of create a sense of safety and a sense of connection, and then feeling love, whether it's love for yourself or love to a parent or love to the larger sort of community or world or place that we live. That's the way I break down the meditations, and making sure that each meditation has a section of turning inward and feeling your body, and a section of finding safety, and a section of being connected, and a section of sharing love. I look for ways to do it. I know parents and families are all different and unique, or they just all may have different experiences. And so for me to be able to say, try this, try that, here's another idea, here's another way to look at safety, here's another way to look at connection. I just sort of like the toolbox image where parents can pull from the toolbox depending on what works for them. And I just can't not think of tools. So in interacting with me, I'm like, here are 1,000 tools that you can try. Take what you like and leave the rest. But that they are all sort of, as best I can, different approaches to, different colors, different feelings, different sensations, all to be able to feel connected, safe, and loved, because that's when your body does its best healing. You release tension, you do your best growing, and you feel not only that you can affect your life and be powerful, having your own skill set about regulating and managing your own body, but also powerful in the world with a positive slant.
You definitely bring all those tools in and then some, and then you do it in this magical way. But there's the body scan, visualization, breathing, affirmations. You really just weave it all together so seamlessly. And the parents don't even realize that they're learning those same things right there too with their
right
child.
There, yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, just, because I know for many parents, bedtime can be stressful. It doesn't always go smoothly. It can sometimes, for some parents, actually turn into a battle, perhaps. And here it actually becomes a beautiful experience. And what a way to fall asleep with your mind and your body in this relaxed state. So yeah, when you say you have thousands of tools and you know how to use them, you definitely do.
And I think too, the parents might hesitate or might feel, I feel like one of the misperceptions about having a bedtime that is very connected is that you're giving in, or that you are sort of giving your child too much attention, or diving too much into fears and worries. And by creating this safe bubble of connection, you're misleading your kids, because the world is a tough place. But I feel like if you have tools that, if you're skilled in making connections and you're skilled from learning with your parents when you're young how to feel safe in the world, then as you move out and grow up, then you bring more to the community.
I think going back to what you shared about those human universal needs of feeling safety and feeling connected to ourselves and then to the world at large, being able to create that for yourself is so important, because of course, we can have people, structures, environments that help us with those. We also need to be able to create that for ourselves, because there are times when that may be all we can do. When you create your meditations, what is your favorite part about it? What do you love the most?
I think it's reading parents' comments about their children. My favorite things from having a daycare center, and what I wanted was not to be alone in it. And so I set it up so that I would have staff to share the stories and share the communication about kids with. And so when I hear another parent's experience about their children, their experience of their children and their thoughts about them, it's just delightful. And I want to support both the parent and the child to grow together and be together. I think one of the hard things about having an online business the way this is set up is that I don't meet people individually. And often my best work is when I can get to know someone and surround them and say, what about this idea? I see that you're interested in this. What about this? Let's do this together. And so that's a little bit of a separation with online meditations, but I absolutely love the individual contact with parents, and then feeling like I'm getting to create an individual connection with a kiddo, or at least that I'm sending out that intent of a very personal product.
You do that, definitely. It really feels like you're right there in that moment, guiding us through this bedtime journey, And, I think considering that it is all online and all digital, your energy is truly coming through.
Thank you. I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
And so, Suzanne, I wanted to ask you also, because as parents are listening, and yes, these meditations are a tool they can utilize. What are some other suggestions you have for parents when they are looking to make bedtime easier?
I think part of what I talk about on my Facebook page, twice a week, I do a live called 10 Minutes Together, in which I try to model sort of some games or imagination ideas to try. But I think the most important part of that is that kids feel like bedtime is a special time for parents too, which can be hard for a parent. At the end of the day, your resources are low and you may have had a lot going on. You may be distracted. You may be frustrated. But if you can see that bedtime sort of like a container or a part with a beginning and an end, and you're able to give even just a few minutes of yourself as a parent to say to your child, you are important to me. I love to be with you. Let's learn together, or let's relax together, or let's soften into bedtime together, that's a very powerful, that's what kids want. That will, it's like a magnet sort of, oh, my parent wants to spend time with me, particularly right now for these 10 minutes or whatever, whatever your length of time. So, and then also to let it be playful, and that the idea that play is a very restorative and healing process. It's how we learn best. And so it's also how we can release tension from the day. And so don't be afraid to be a little silly for a while at bedtime. One of my favorite newest ideas is to do backwards bedtime, where you sort of walk backwards through the process of brushing your teeth, and you face away from the mirror, and maybe you put your pillow at the end of the other end of the bed for a night, or just to be silly and sort of joyful with your kids, and let it be another section of the day where they are playing, not where they're sort of, if bedtime is a struggle, it may be because it's a battle of wills about being alone in your room or stopping getting attention from parents or whatever it may be. And so if you can sort of bookend it with a little bit of play, also slow motion, if you go through the bedtime routine walking like you're walking through water or molasses or whatever, that's a really good help for the body to slow down. And when your body slows down, your mind can slow down. So just letting play be part of it, and letting bedtime start with an invitation of this is time we're spending together, and this is important to me as a parent.
I love that. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of the times when my son just wanted to play at bedtime, and trying to tell him it's not playtime, it's bedtime. But
right.
maybe I need to go with that.
Yeah. My daughter is a very sensitive soul, and bedtime, she didn't do a lot of talking. She didn't process things through the day, and she would process them, I think, at bedtime. And so spending time at bedtime with her was the time that she could release her daily stresses. And so, but often, for me, often it was like, oh my gosh, this is time we've got to move on from here. When are you going to ever fall asleep? But then I think partly for me to make it playful and make it sort of lighthearted and fun. I don't think I knew then quite, or I was just learning how valuable to the body system it is to be playful and laughter and silly and connected. So
I love that idea of just welcoming this state of play as part of the bedtime process. And it reminds me of in your meditations where you say, and if your body just needs to wiggle, just wiggle.
Mm-hmm. Just let it out.
Just go ahead. And again, just go with it. You're going to wiggle. Just wiggle.
Celebrate it. And then maybe it will settle down.
Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I love the work that you're doing in the world. I feel like parents everywhere, children everywhere can really benefit in deep ways. Like I said, this goes so far beyond bedtime. And I'm very excited to be able to share your work with the world.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I've been grinning from beginning to end of this. It's a delight, and I'm happy to love to share, and I love to connect with parents and kids equally. So thank you.
And Suzanne, if there are parents who are listening who would like to get in touch with you, find out more about your work, find your meditations, what are the best ways they can do this?
So my meditations are housed on a free website, or a free app called Insight Timer. And I don't know, many people might know about it already. But if you don't, the app is called Insight Timer, and it's a resource that is free, or you can have a paid subscription, but you can access all of the meditations and many courses about mindfulness and relaxation, music. So looking up my name under the Insight Timer on the Insight Timer app is a great place to start. And you can link to my website, which is mindbodybedtime.com from there. But also I'm on Facebook. Like I said, I do twice a week live, 10 minutes together, sometimes geared for parents and sometimes just playful with kids, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my handles on Facebook and Instagram are both Mind, Body, Bedtime.
And Suzanne, we will be sure to include all of your links in the show notes so that our listeners can find everything in one place and it's easy for them to get to you. And I also wanted to add one more thing. I forgot this when we were talking. We recently discovered your Waterfall meditation for parents, the 5-minute one. And I mentioned it to my son the other day. I go, oh, there's one on here for parents. And he goes, Mom, make sure you listen to it. I said, okay. And then he said, and make sure Daddy listens to it too. I said, okay. And he goes, no, be sure. I go, no, we will.
That one is a wash away the day. Like if you've had, acknowledging the difficulty and the challenges of parenting, and that's, they are there, but you can have a few minutes for yourself to wash that away and find again, sort of center with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought that was really, made me laugh that he wanted us to make sure that we listened so we could get relaxed. Yeah.
Excellent.
So again, thanks so much, Suzanne. And I look forward to sharing your work with the world.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thanks so much for listening to the Women in Depth podcast. I hope it brings you a deeper understanding of yourself and others, and that you found some insights that illuminated and inspired. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting Women in Depth with a one-time or recurring donation. Any amount is appreciated and helps us continue to provide free, quality content for the world. If donating resonates with you, you can find the donation link on today's show notes. You can also follow Women in Depth on Facebook and YouTube, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe on iTunes. Again, thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.